All right. So just gonna go ahead and close this out. Need that. Yeah, if somebody can just keep an eye on the chat for me and as those questions. You got it? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and hit this crazy present button somewhere around here. There it is. All right. Cool. So yeah, this is Spruce and Juice, your Unity games. This title was not my own. It was bestowed upon me. I had a much worse title. It was like How to Make Things Pretty in Unity. Yeah, aka How to Trick Your Friends into Thinking You Know Unreal. Um, so yeah, I'm Noah. I am a student at IGM and RT and games. I've got about 3-ish years of Unity experience. I've been basically with it since they started doing 2D. Um, and I'm a huge game jam enthusiast. I love them to death. I haven't missed Ludendare since December of 2012, so it's 4 years this December. Yeah, and I'm working on a game called No on the Quest to Toronto Light, and that's a whole game about emotions. We'll talk about that with me later. I am a self-declared aesthetician. I care deeply about aesthetics, and I'm probably a narcissist. So I just want to show kind of like some stuff that I've done in Unity that I feel is kind of good representation of things that can look like they weren't done in Unity, potentially. Bromag Arena is a game jam game Aiden and I did a few months ago. And so that's a little bit rougher. And then also that demo is that's all, basically except for the key that I modeled, that's all just Unity built-in standard assets. And terrain and stuff. Like it's just a bunch of tweaking of the sliders, and it's kind of hard to see on the projector. Also, it's kind of a crappy GIF because Google didn't like my original GIF, and so I had to like scale it way down and drop the frame rate and stuff. All right. So yeah, so this is kind of how like this talk's going to go over kind of how to make things look better in Unity and with really easy methods of making things look better in Unity and really cheap and effective ways. So why do aesthetics matter, though? Aesthetics matter because books are judged by their cover, whether we like it or not. Um, if you look, like I literally took this today. It's a screenshot of just my itch.io homepage. Like, there are so many games that are, you're one in a million vying for a player's attention, and so your game does have to stand out, no matter like whether you like it or not. It's got to look good for you to get attention. Because a lot of people, like if you notice, you've got these giant thumbnails on itch.io and then this tiny text underneath that's the title of the game. So what the goal here is really to present your game visually rather than via text or whatever, and to really stand out in this giant cloud. And when your game looks good, players are less distracted by the fact that it looks terrible, so that generally you'll have better immersion, and that can lead to better reception. There's less to complain about when they don't have to complain about how it looks and the fact that it looks like every other Unity game. But I don't have time, money, or skills, or I don't know how to do this stuff, Noah. The good thing we're using Unity. Um, and something is far better than nothing. Don't write off adding a little bit of visual polish to your game just because you think it'll take too much time or you can't delve deep enough into it to do it perfectly. Something's better than nothing. And it's as long as it doesn't look exactly like the standard Unity lighting and material setup, generally it's a lot better. You're doing a lot better for yourself. And the standard image effects that are provided by Unity are free, and they're fast to just drag and drop, adjust sliders, and really personalize your game very quickly. And like a lot of people don't tweak materials when it's really not that hard to. You just adjust the sliders, and it really helps knock off that Unity weird shiny gray blue thing. So yeah, we're gonna do a demo. You don't have to go to this link. This is just a link to a GitHub page where you can download the project that I'm gonna be working on today. It's the scene before everything is edited, so you can follow along, and then also the scene that I put together when I was practicing this, and so that can give you an idea of what it should look like at the end. A couple of notes before we go into the demo. We are using Unity 5.3.6. That's a couple versions behind. It's because my main project that I've been working on for nearly 6 months now That was kind of the latest version of Unity at the time, so I'm a little locked into that right now, and I haven't been able to update. But everything as far as standard assets is for the most part the same. I know they've improved some stuff, but it only, like, this will get you a rough idea of what you have to work with, and allow you to dive deeper and explore more. And also, it only gets better. All right, so let's go ahead and open up this project. So we have some lovely models provided by my good friend and roommate, Aiden, over here. And so we've got this nice little holiday scene we put together. And so this is definitely, you can tell this is very much the standard Unity look, right? The weird shiny materials, everything's kind of blue. Lighting is harsh and weird. I don't even know. All right, so we're gonna clean this up. And the first thing I usually do is right out the gate, get rid of this directional light. It's gross, and everyone leaves it pointing the same direction and at the same values. And the first thing you can tell a Unity game by is the fact that it's got hard shadows that like point in one direction and like are really just weird and bright and not nicely colored. So just get rid of that guy. All right. And also, what we're going for here is more of a, like, this is kind of low poly type stuff. So we want to go for more of a flat shaded effect. And that directional light is not going to help us with that really. The other thing is open up the lighting inspector sometime. So just right under window, go down to lighting. Again, I literally for a year never touched this. And there's all these amazing like global illumination settings and sliders that you can just tweak. And they allow you to really change how your scene looks and is illuminated. So in our case, we're gonna go ahead and also kick the weird like blue like look that comes with Unity. This weird like everything's kind of a gray shimmer. Actually comes from the gray box, or the default skybox that it uses rather. And so we're gonna go ahead and just kick that. A quick way to just get rid of that weird color and move on with your life is to get an ambient source from color. And in my case, I wanted this to be kind of orangey. We're going to go ahead and just grab this guy. It's a little too much. We'll bring it down. So I'm going to grab this nice orange color, and then I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Somewhere around here, probably. We need to bring our intensity down, too. So I'm just going to bring that down to about half. Maybe a little bit more. I want it to start dark because I'm going to illuminate it with other light sources. So yeah, now we've got a nice orange brownish tint to the scene, and it's a little bit darker, and we're just using global illumination right now. But everything's still, you know, it's dark, and it's not very dynamic as far as lighting goes. And so we're going to drop in some point lights. I honestly, when I'm lighting a room, I found that I really prefer point lights because they can, especially square or like nicely squared or round rooms, things that are uniform in width and height, especially, benefit a lot from having a nice point light right in the center at the top. So we're going to go ahead and create a point light in the ceiling. We're going to go over to that guy. Hello. All right, and we're going to drop that down into the room a bit. All right, bring that down a bit. And so right now, it's not really, oh, I didn't flip the ceiling over. Somehow the ceiling got flipped over when I was importing. So we'll do that real quick. Whoop. All right. Move that point light back into the ceiling. Okay. So now you can see the lights in the room. We'll bring this up. And what we're going to want to do actually is bring up the range of the light. So you can see right now this kind of like weird sphere around the light. That's its range. And so we want to bring that up so that it touches the walls and actually illuminates the entire room, right? And so now we've got this nice light. I think the range is about where I wanted it to be. Yeah, this looks good. And again, the reason I like using point lights is you get this like nice, the corners are kind of a little bit darker and they're clearly defined. I feel like it just feels like a much better and more uniformly and realistically lit room. But this light is a little too white for me. I'm trying to go for a more yellow or orangish look. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the color of the light a little bit, and we're going to make it kind of a burnt orange type look. That's a little too much. Maybe bring it down a little bit more. Somewhere around there. So now we've got a nice, almost amber, I guess, light filling up our scene. And so the next thing we're going to do, and this will make more sense kind of in the future when I make these lights, these nice little lights all over the tree glow. We're going to go ahead and add a light in the tree as well. So we're going to create another point light. And it almost popped up right where I want it. I'm just going to kind of move it just below the leaves there. The radius should be, or the range should be about right. And the intensity needs to come up just a little bit. So basically, I'm getting the effect that you have from an actual like tree, Christmas tree with like lights all over it, where you've got kind of a glow coming from the tree, from all the lights inside of it. And then the lights on it are blue and red, so we're just going to kind of make a nice purple color somewhere in there, just kind of as a subtle effect. All right, that should do. Bring the intensity up just a little. The real trick, honestly, is not overdoing things, because a lot of times you start tweaking something, you keep tweaking it up and up and up, and then you step back and realize that like you've illuminated your entire room with a Christmas tree. So you got to be careful of that. So I'm going to keep it right about there. We'll call that good for now. One thing you want to note is I've also set no shadows on this. Generally, like this type of lighting, I wouldn't want to be casting a shadow, because see, if we cast like shadows on this, you get really weird, like pretty harsh things. And like if this is what you're going for, sure. But just be aware that, you know, this can really degrade your scene, having really harsh looking shadows. And I can bring down their strength a little bit and make it a little bit better. But in our case, again, we're going for that flat shaded look. So I'm gonna go ahead and just drop them. All right, so the next thing we're gonna wanna do is take care of these crappy, weird, shiny materials. And so to tweak that, really all you gotta do is go into the material for each thing. So like, let's say I've been looking at the mantle a lot because it's easy to see that it's pretty weird and shiny. Whoa there. Let's zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Why is that selecting the whole scene? Weird. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this fireplace, I can just go into my materials, and I've got them under start here. So I can go into fireplace, and so I see there's a lot of stuff in here, and you don't have to know really much about anything to tweak these though. Basically, the two sliders you want to take care of in materials are your metallic value and your smoothness value. And you can see this little sphere down here that kind of shows how the light is being reflected off of it and how it reacts to the light. So I just want to bring the smoothness way down. So if I do it way up, you get this like nice, shiny, almost wet looking thing. And you bring metallic up, you get like harsh, like burnt color almost. But what I'm going to do is actually bring the smoothness way down. I'm going to just tweak it a little bit. Yeah, that should do. So you just adjust it really to your eye. So I think that's okay. Again, I want things to be pretty flat and not terribly shiny. To save us a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and just select all of these and then set the smoothness value to something fairly reasonable. Ideally, you would take a little bit more time to go through and do these individually. One thing I'm going to do, though, the ribbons on these presents here can be a little shiny, and that'll actually look kind of nice. So I'm actually going to go ahead and bring up the shininess on those, and maybe even give them a little bit of metallic so they have kind of a shiny ribbon look. Not too much. Again, subtlety is the key here. All right. So now that we've adjusted those materials, we'll call that pretty much good. I'm gonna do one more thing, and that's bring the floor down to 0 smoothness, because floor really shouldn't be that shiny. Ideally, you would spend a little bit more time tweaking this. Walls usually get a little bit better treatment and shininess because they look nicer when they reflect light a little bit better. But again, spend time playing with this and adjust it to your tastes and what looks best in your application. So now we're going to get into some really cool stuff, but also, like, this comes with a warning, also sometimes terribly expensive stuff, and that's the Unity standard image effects. It's a package that you can just import, and it provides a bunch of really awesome, basically post-processing effects that you can add to your scene, but because they're post-processing, they eat a lot of resources. So you have to be careful about how many you stack, and how you have to be tasteful about it as well. You can make things look pretty terrible, on the opposite spectrum. But with that, for the demo, I'm going to go pretty deep into them. Just remember, frame rate also matters. Aesthetics aren't the only thing. All right, so the first thing I usually add, because it's my favorite, is bloom. So we're going to just type in bloom and add this script. And then we've got all these awesome little dudes that we can adjust here. And so basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to use bloom to create a really cool, glow effect on these lights on the tree, right? So each of them is going to have a nice, like, halo almost around them. And they'll look like really nice, juicy lights. And the one thing I think from the Unreal Engine that, like, I love the most is their HDR bloom. It's incredible. Unity doesn't really have anything that does that well, except for the bloom post-processing effect. So go into our main camera, and I'm going to set the intensity to, let me get some notes here, save some time. All right, I'm going to set the intensity. I'm going to leave it where it's at for now. But I'm going to bring our threshold down a bit. And that's basically, this is the lightness value at which bloom starts to affect things. So you can see in our scene, we're actually going to maybe pull that up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so you can see in our scene, as we bring it down, things get real fuzzy and bloomy. And I can bring my intensity up. Like, that's perfect, I think. So I'm going to put that back to 0.5. And there you go, 0.3. So you can see things already look kind of warm and fuzzy. And this may be a little overdone, for example, but you can see how this would create a nice, cozy, and less harsh and weird effect that Unity has. And the thing we're going to do, we're going to set our HDR from auto to on. And another note, I've already turned it, I haven't turned it on actually. So you got to turn on HDR on your camera as well. And that will allow bloom to do its thing with HDR. And so HDR allows materials to have lightness values that are higher than 1, so that you can exploit bloom to make things look really, really glowy. All right, so let's go ahead and change some of these materials now. So we have light 1 and light 2, and I'm going to do, I can't do them at the same time. So I'm gonna, basically what we're going to do is we're going to tweak the emission on them. And the emission is kind of basically just instead of the color they reflect, it's the color they emit. And so I'm going to go ahead, now that I've got HDR enabled, I can do a cool thing where I can set their their lightness value to a value higher than 1. So I'm going to set the emission to a nice red. And you can already see they're kind of glowing, but that's not enough. We've got to really pump it. So we just crank this value way up. And you can see, you can't really see it on the projector, but it does start to say on the color, it has in text like HDR. It's almost unreadable on my screen too. I don't know why they chose to make it that color or indicate it there. But anyways, I can crank this way up and I can make it really intense and dumb. Or I can keep it reasonable and just make a nice little glow around these guys. I'm also going to make them a little bit lighter. All right, I like that. Okay. We're going to do the same thing on light 2. So set the emission to the color we want. In this case, I'm going to cheat a little bit and just grab it from there. And then set our lightness value way up. Look at that. Look at those nice glowing dudes. All right. So now we're a little more sold on the effect that the tree is actually casting light under it. Before it looked kind of weird, but now you can kind of see where the light is coming from. So yeah, that's already looking a lot better than the scene we started with. But what if we go another level deeper? Let's go ahead and toss some vignette on here. I know this is Aiden's favorite post-processing effect. So vignette and chromatic aberration is a really nice one, actually, because it's a really incredible subtle effect that really, I think, helps a lot. I agree with Aiden that it works. He's got it on Utter. You probably never noticed, but without it, it makes a huge difference. Because if I turn it off right now, you can't really see it that much, but you can get used to it pretty quickly. And then you turn it off, and you see it just kind of makes the scene feel, I don't know, better. What's up?
Do you think that vignette would work in a first-person context where you're moving the camera around and walking around?
Yes.
I always get a feeling that some of these post-processing effects work very well when it comes to video or image where the camera's stationary, but gets kind of but becomes jarring if you are actually moving the camera around in real time.
I would like you to find me a first-person shooter that doesn't use vignetting. All of them, especially because it drives your focus to the center of the screen, all of them use it at least at some, like in some point, in a subtle way. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, he asked, would vignetting work for like a first-person application, in like a first-person game or a first-person shooter or something. So then we're also going to bring up our blurred corners just a little bit because those are kind of nice. But we're gonna get blurrier here in a minute. And then chromatic aberration is a weird one because it doesn't really work for a lot of things. It does this, makes things really funky. I like it in some contexts, but this is not a context where we need it. So we're going to bring that down to 0. All right, so that's good. Next thing we're going to throw on is some depth of field. This one is one that you can, I love it, but you can easily overdo it, and it's easy to really make it jarring for players. So we're going to go ahead and throw on depth of field. Oh boy, that's the wrong one. So if we throw on depth of field, what is cool about the scripts is it's got this cool visualize thing. Everything in black is visible, question mark, and everything in white is going to be blurred a little bit. And so we're just going to quickly adjust. You can change your focal size, and so that's how much is, like how big of a band you have, and your aperture is how sharp the cutoff is. So you can see there's the band. And we're just going to adjust that so that the tree is the main focus. This is one of those things that probably wouldn't work super well in a first-person shooter type context. I am currently working on a project that with Aiden that it kind of works well in, but it's finicky, and it usually takes scripting to adjust the focus based on what you're looking at and stuff. So we'll call that good for now. We're going to make it a little rough. You can see now that kind of the corner of the, you can't really see it on the projector, but the corner of the mantle and kind of the background is a little bit blurrier. All right, so that's already like an incredibly different scene from the one we started with. I can pull up, I have a picture actually of the scene we started with here. This is the scene we started with. And this is what we have now. So it's definitely a lot different, and I did that in like 15 minutes in front of you. So think about what you could do if you sat down for maybe even an hour and really tweaked those sliders. So I'm going to show you a couple more things just so you know you have them at your disposal. I'm going to go ahead and open up the scene just to save some time. And there's a couple other really cool, fun effects you can do, and I encourage you to delve into the standard effects yourself. You can do stuff like edge detection, which gives your game this really nice, like, cartoony feel. Like, just by clicking a checkbox, I've turned it from a nice, like, warm, gamey scene to a cartoony, almost Borderlands style looking scene. And then also you have noise and grain, which you probably won't even be able to see very well on the screen, but this even sells the comic-y feel that comes with edge detection even better. It really feels like I'm looking at a piece of paper now. And that's 2 scripts and some sliders. And it took me about 10 minutes to do before this presentation. So yeah, that's kind of a summary of the things you could do with standard effects in Unity. So yeah, here's a nice little before and after comparison. You can see we got rid of that weird blue color and the shininess of everything. And this feels like a lot more nicer and inviting than this cold, weird room here. So some final thoughts. An eye for visual aesthetics is not something that like happens overnight, and I wouldn't even say that I'm good at it. It's like it takes a lot of practice. Just like the big key that I would like, the big takeaway for me at least is know when to keep it subtle, and it is very easy to overdo. There's a lot of times Aiden will look over at my screen and be like, dude, that is like eye-bleedingly like blurry or like bloom. Bloom is my biggest creed. I destroy everything with bloom. Um, and then the last thing is be aware of performance. Like I said, you can't just stack post-processing scripts on top of each other and expect things to go well. So be careful of how much you're doing and try to be as efficient as possible with what you're doing. Um, also, if it's possible, a lot of that lighting that I had set up could have been baked, and you can look into how to do that in Unity. It's really easy actually, but that's something you could look into for your scenes as well. So yeah, I can take some questions now. So,
I don't know if this is more of a general Unity question, but when you were showing that you could have like cast shadows or disable that
mhm.
shadow feature, possible to have it light not cast shadows, but have objects cast their own shadows.
Yeah, so you
Like, can
can
you selectively choose which objects have shadows and which objects don't?
yeah. So the question was, can you basically have objects selectively cast or not cast shadows? And in Unity, yeah, absolutely. So like, say I wanted this present, if I can select it, maybe. Oh, I can say, mesh render cast shadows off. It's literally it's as far as Unity is concerned, yeah, it's a thing that Unity that's available for Unity. And you can change like how many side you can have things that cast shadows only outwardly or only inwardly. You can do a lot of things. Yep. What's up?
How much do you think, like when you're dealing with sliders like this, do you think, okay, I know exactly what thing to adjust compared to you're adjusting things and watching images to get what you want?
I've mostly just spent time just adjusting things and seeing the image and being like, okay, that works. And there's some like a lot of times I'll also read on the documentation for the effects and be like, okay, this is exactly what the slider is doing. So I'm not just like throwing the kill my frame rate slider to maximum and seeing no effect and being like, well, I guess I'll just leave that. It surely is doing something good. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit of both. A lot of it has become intuition as to like I know what will cause certain effects. So it's a lot of just time using it and getting used to that. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was with when dealing with the sliders, how much of it is knowing what just exactly what value will do what, and how much of it is just adjusting and then looking. The other thing with that is sometimes I end up doing the same effect in two different ways, just because like especially with bloom, you can throw the intensity way up and your threshold way up, or you can bring your threshold down and have the intensity at like a reasonable level, or whatever. There's different balances that kind of result in the same end result. Any more questions? Cool.
I
What's up?
So the one thing that I would encourage about that directional light at the start
Mm-hmm.
is that in most cases you can only have 2 to 4 point lights active.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get shadows in your game at all, I would do it with a directional light. Because if you throw in like 5 or 6 point lights, it's going to start disabling them for texture and prioritizing them. So if you're not like 100% conscious of that, but you want to have a shadow in your game, keep that directional light.
Mm-hmm.
But don't just leave.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have prefaced that with the directional light is useful. I'm not gonna like it yeah. And I have kind of abused the point lights in my game. But yeah, and that's also where baking lighting comes into play as well.
Like, I mean, one thing that you might want to do is like you created the point light in the top of the room,
Mm-hmm.
which is like a good thing to do to get the lighting of the room correct. But then like one tip I would have is like create that point light that lights the room. But if it's in a corner of the room, use a directional light for the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
It's just better
Yeah.
graphics card.
Yeah.
Or if you're gonna make it, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like Wes just said, like just the directional light is useful for and point lights are limited in Unity and they are more resource intensive than directional lights. And directional lights are useful if you're trying to just cast shadows, for sure.
You can even turn off the light and just have it catch shadows.
Yeah.
If you don't want any of the color.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble about things and act like I know things.